Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to Old Soul Torah. It's no secret that we're experiencing a profound shift in humanity right now on the planet. We have gone through the information age, we're going through the age of technology, and now we have the age of AI, artificial intelligence, and so we have more knowledge than we know what to do with. In fact, it's creating a little bit of a challenge and a crisis, how to get through everything. So with all this knowledge, you would think that we should feel more liberated, more free, correct? But the answer is that more often than not, when a great change comes, it brings its gifts, it brings its advantages, but it also has side effects. And the way the Kabbalah explains it is when a great amount of information or light or energy comes into the planet, then you are a vessel that needs to contain and house this light. And if the container has not yet adjusted to the profundity of the light, then it begins to have cracks. It begins to experience instability. And this is what we're finding across every medium of information. If you have a social media account, you will know this. With all the blessings of instant communication and wisdom and resources and updates, comes also the disadvantages of the energies that are trying to manipulate you, the algorithms that are tracking you, that are trying to trigger you, divide you, and it's all drawing on this energy of fear and calamity and falsehood versus truth, etc., etc. So as a person who follows, as a Jew, a Hebrew, an Israelite, I follow the Torah. And we believe that the Torah has all the answers to all the world's problems. It's just a matter of connecting the dots. So being that this is a Torah channel for old souls and deep thinkers, Jewish or non-Jewish, everybody is welcome to explore. It would be essential to cover this topic. How does the current challenges of the age of information, technology, and artificial intelligence, how does it connect to the Torah or what the Torah has to say? Does the Torah offer any navigation tools, any references to this age we're in? And the answer to all those questions is yes, yes, and yes. And that is the focus of this entire video, is how to make sense and how to make sense of this current time cycle we're living in, how to navigate successfully the challenges, and what exactly is going on in the larger picture. And how does it affect me personally at home? While here in this body, how do I not get seduced by the challenges and crippled by the paralysis of some of the side effects, and instead be able to grow and ascend and come closer to Hashem through it all? More than 2,500 years ago, the prophet Daniel described a mysterious period near the end of history. A time of upheaval, a time of awakening, a time when knowledge itself would transform the world. Daniel begins with a striking description. There shall be a time of trouble, such as never has been since there was a nation. Rabbis understood this as the birth pangs of the redemption, Chivlei Mashiach. In other words, before a new era emerges, the world experiences turbulence. Periods of global upheaval, moral confusion, instability among nations, but it's not the end of the world, it's merely a transition in history. And the next verse introduces a dramatic idea. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Traditionally, this verse refers to the resurrection of the dead, but many teachers also read it on a deeper level. Human beings can be alive physically, yet asleep spiritually. They move through their days on automatic pilot, they follow impulses, and they live simply without any awareness. So Prophet Daniel suggests that during these times of upheaval, something begins to happen. Many who were asleep start to wake up. Some awaken towards truth and higher purpose. Others awaken only to confusion at not having done the work, not having done the search, not having asked the questions. And there will also be guidance. The guidance comes from the knowledgeable ones, hamaskilim, which means not just knowledgeable, but enlightened, awake, will be like the radiant, like the bright expanse of the sky, and those who lead the many to righteousness will be like the stars forever and ever. So why do we use stars as a metaphor? Because stars are navigation tools. When you're in the darkness, whether you're on land or sea, in the ancient world, you look towards the stars for navigation. But the special thing that the prophet of Daniel is implying here is that there is going to be no heavenly body as bright as the sun to show us the way in the end of times, but rather each and every one of us will come to our own light. When the sun goes down, the stars come out. And that light that you have to draw out on yourself, because there is no sun to shine and show you the way, that light you cultivate within, that is your navigation tool.
Then comes one of the most remarkable lines in the entire book. Many shall run to and from, and knowledge shall increase. So for centuries, commentators struggled to understand this verse. Some thought it referred to the spread of books, or people searching for wisdom, for knowledge. And some interpreted many people shall run to and from. There's going to be increased connection all over the planet, increased travel. This was the speculation. But today the verse feels so familiar, it's haunting. Humanity today, right in the palm of their hand, are constantly running to and from. They're searching, they're scrolling, they're moving rapidly through information. And tons of information. Knowledge increasing at a pace you've never seen before. Scientific discovery, global communication, artificial intelligence. The world is literally experiencing an explosion of knowledge. But Daniel was told something important. Seal the book until the time of the end. In other words, the prophecy would not fully make sense to earlier generations until history itself reached that stage. So only later generations will begin to recognize the patterns found in Daniel's prophecy. And perhaps we are living in that very age Daniel was describing. An age of accelerating knowledge, rapid movement of information, and humanity searching for direction. So the question of our time is, if knowledge is increasing, if information is everywhere, and humanity is constantly searching, the real question becomes, how do we navigate this world of overwhelming information? How do we navigate successfully in these later chapters of human history? If you ask most people which book of the Bible feels the least relevant today, many would say Leviticus. It's a book about priests, temples, and animal sacrifices, things that no longer exist. The temple is gone. The sacrificial system ended nearly 2,000 years ago. So why would the prophetic words of the Torah devote an entire book to a system that would eventually disappear? And yet, for thousands of years, Jews have read this book every single year, studying it carefully and insisting that its wisdom is eternal. Unless the language of sacrifice was pointing to something deeper. Because sacrifice never really vanished. Human beings are still making offerings every single day. Not animals, but something far more valuable. Our time, our attention, and our focus. In the ancient world, offerings were brought to a physical altar. Today, our attention is constantly being claimed by something else. Which raises a fascinating question. What are we offering? And could it be that the ancient book of Leviticus contains insights that are surprisingly relevant for the digital age? When you open the book of Leviticus, something unusual appears in the very first word of the first verse. Vayikra el Moshe, and he called to Moses. But if you look carefully at the Torah scroll, the final letter of the word Vayikra is written smaller than usual. A small aleph. It's always there, every Torah scroll, carefully preserved by the scribes. The Torah itself never explains why, but the commentators have noticed. Among them, Harav Yaakov ben Asher, in his concise work, the Kitzur Baal HaTurim, points it out. And he is not alone. Many sages across the generations pause at this unusual tiny letter.
Just as a reference, compare the two alephs that are right beside each other, the tiny one, and then to the left is a normal, regular size aleph. Here he says, and he called, the aleph of Vayikra is written as a small letter because Moshe wanted to write Vayikar, and it happened. Meaning if you remove the aleph, it just simply says Vayikar, and it happened. The word can be written in two ways, Vayikra and Vayikar. It depends if you include the aleph or not. When Hashem was dictating to Moshe how to write the psukim, the verses in the Torah, it came to this word, Moshe kind of backed off and wanted to be humble. He said, why don't we just write Vayikar, which means, and God happened to, by chance, God came upon you or you came upon God and God communicated. But the idea is it's by chance or random. And we see this in other verses, such as the one when God, by chance, happened upon Bil'am. But so Moses didn't wanted it, but Moses was tsanua, he was modest, and he wanted to make himself small by not including the letter aleph, because he didn't want to attribute attention and loudness and greatness to himself. However, Hashem said, no, you put that aleph in, because if you put that aleph in, it becomes Vayikra. What is Vayikra? It's also a calling, but it's deliberate, it's intentional, and it's absolutely affectionate and loving and dear. When the word Vayikra is written with an aleph, Rashi says it is a way of expressing affection, the mode used by the ministering angels when addressing each other, as it says in Isaiah, and one called Vayikra unto another, saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvaot, Me'oloch ha'aretz kavodo. And the word Vayikra is used. It's Lashon Melachim. It's the language of the angels. And Moses is like, hold off. I can't write that about myself. It's just a general rule you have in life. You don't flatter yourself. If I'm the one writing the Torah, I can't write that about me, right? So that's what the oral tradition says. By the way, the debate is resolved with a compromise. The compromise is Moshe says, okay, I'm writing the aleph to make myself precious in the eyes of God, but I'm making that aleph small. I'm making it small. I don't want to bring too much attention to myself. If you think about it, this is the opposite of this information age that we're in, where everybody's competing to be so loud, so seen, so heard. Even the phone, the gadget that they give us as an access to everything is called the iPhone. And you have the selfies, and you have the me's and the eyes are very, very large. But Moshe said, no, I need the aleph to be small. Because when you make yourself small, that's when God's voice is heard. That's when you have enough space and room for God to enter, is when you're not taking up all that space with yourself.
The book of Leviticus begins with the idea of being called upon. But what is it that is calling us every day? What deserves our offering of our attention and what doesn't? The small aleph teaches us to filter out the big noise. If a piece of news is screaming for your attention, if a viral topic is especially loud, it's often a sign of distraction. But why? Because more often than not, what is valuable in life communicates in a whisper, a small aleph.
Adam ki yakriv mikem korban laHashem. When a person makes an offering from themselves to Hashem. So the rabbis noticed the Hebrew word mikem, from yourselves, is redundant. You could have just said, when a person makes an offering to Hashem, why do you have to say when a person makes an offering from themselves, mikem, to Hashem? And so the answer the rabbis give us is something very interesting, and that is that an offering is not an offering if it's not from you. What does it mean? It has to be from inside of you. It has to be from your will, your conscious consent. It has to be from your choosing. It has to be from your awareness. You have to consciously know what you're doing for it to be designated as a proper korban, an offering. The problem with the digital world today is they don't ask us for our consent. In fact, there's very little choosing that we're doing on our own, and this is a problem with Torah values, because the digital world that we know today is manufactured, not manufactured by us, but rather constructed artificially for us. And this is where a spiritual person can come into conflict with things like internet and social media and any kind of online activity, really. Of Vayikra, Leviticus assumes that not everything in life is equal. And the truth of the matter is, some things in life and some people or situations in life degrade a person, and some lift them up, some nourish the soul. So the mind, if you replace the altar in Leviticus with the human mind, you have to ask yourself, what are you going to allow in the sacred space, and what you're not going to allow, and what you would never allow in. So the big question is how do you tell the difference? And this is what this next verse is going to address.
No meal offering that you bring to Hashem shall be made with leaven or honey.
So if you think about it, if the altar is the human mind, and you're supposed to filter what comes into the mind, the one thing that should never be placed on the altar is something that is overly inflated or artificially sweetened. So both mean a departure from your center, and both mean that there's some form of emotional manipulation in it. Overinflated means you're exaggerating. It's beyond what the facts are. You're putting a lot of fluff. You're emotionally charging the topic to bring about a strong, even a violent reaction from the people who read it, or you're sweetening it to the point where it's fantasy. So in Torah, what Leviticus is telling us is to guard yourself from outside external influences that may rob you from your authentic self, from the real you. And not just rob you, but manipulate you, control you. So what we need, the book of Leviticus is suggesting, is a filtration system. Because Kedusha, holiness, is not divorcing yourself from the world. It's not separating yourself from the world and banning everything that might be tov v'ra, a mixture of good and evil, such as books and media and internet. You don't ban it. You just come in knowing that the tree is good and evil, a mixture of both. And our job as human beings is to separate, to do a birur, to levarer, to clarify, to separate the unusable parts from the usable. So the shells, the husks from the fruit. But there's going to be a lot of things competing for your offering or your attention. So far we know what not to put on the altar, but what does the Torah say that we should always put on the altar? And that is salt. Because salt is a preservative. It doesn't look to excite and flatter and inflate and all of that. It's not overly sweet. If you notice, honey is very sweet. Chametz, yeast from leavened bread, inflates very fast, but both go away very quickly. So it virals out. It's the national conversation. It's the social issue that everyone's debating about and dividing themselves for or against. But the Torah says, no, what should you put on the altar? Don't put those things. Put salt. Salt is a preservative. It represents the enduring wisdom of all generations. the timeless and essential principles and of life, of successfully living life. And we should spend more time with the classics, more time investing yourself in something that has age, that has experience, that has preserved itself over time. I would any day invest in something that belongs to a timeless tradition over a fad, a passing, loud, noisy fad, whether that fad is a new value system, a position they're taking on a social issue, a political issue. It's all emotionally charged. We're all being manipulated. But Hashem tells us through his Torah to stay and be the salt of the earth. The salt of the earth also means humility, but in this case, it means preserving something. It has lasting power, and that's what you want to place on your altar or invest your mind, your heart, your soul, and your thoughts.
Next, we have the inner parts he shall wash with water. The kirbo is the inner parts. It refers to the internal organs and intestines, which Ramban Nachmanides has a very interesting commentary on. He says it's because they're filled with filth. The gut of the animal is filled with filth and waste. They must be washed out so nothing repulsive is brought upon the altar. And this we can apply to what we contribute online, what we post or react to. Before we post something online, we should pause and do the same examination the priest did before the offering. Is there anger in it? Is there ego or pride or vanity in it? What effect will it have on my environment? And we should always ask this one last question. Did this really come from me, or was it planted there by unclean forces trying to shape my reaction? Because often the filth we place on the altar was never ours to begin with. It was planted in us by forces we never stopped to examine. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning. It shall not go out. In a noisy and loud world, protecting your inner flame is an act of holiness. Consider this a divine calling, especially if it speaks to you.
We're entering a new phase, and we need to re-examine the ancient texts that have timeless principles. It's like salt. It's long, it's lasting, it's timeless, it's enduring, and it preserves. Look at the teachings of Leviticus and how it might apply to today's world. What is the biggest challenge of today's world? One of them is the digital age. We're a global community as it is, but we're not getting along. That part of all of us uniting as one planet, one conversation, as a humanity, that's being done as we speak. But we're not applying the right principles, the right laws. We're confusing freedom with means anything goes. Anything is acceptable. Anything goes, and we're not allowed to create limitations, boundaries. Well, the Torah teaches about boundaries. Vayikra, Leviticus teaches about boundaries. While we can't institute those boundaries on a political level, you can certainly do it on a personal level. And we're hoping, if anything, that we open our minds to this new direction and this new way of bringing salt with us on the altar, but at the same time fulfilling the Vayikra, the calling. But we want to be called upon by the right voice, the small aleph, the silent voice within by which Hashem addresses you and communicates with you, not the noise that is calling and competing for your attention, which is pure manipulation. So stay strong, my friends. Stay chazak. Stay kadosh. Kadosh means holy, but it also means to make a separation. May your altar always have the right offerings, and may your whatever you offer, may it be a reach michuach laHashem, a pleasant odor, a pleasant scent to the Almighty, that He can look at your insides and see and understand your intentions are only good.